1, 2, testing guys. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Man United stream channel. We have got a takeover update for you. I'm just letting this all sync up. It takes a bit of time, but welcome to the channel guys. Hope you're having a good afternoon so far. It's midweek. We're looking forward to the Premier League returning finally on the weekend. But before we get to that, we've got news of a possible takeover. We're going to be discussing everything that's happened so far in the last couple of days. We've not given you an update because we've been waiting on further news. Now, I've been trying to get as much information as possible from sources, from different press reports and journalists, trying to find out what's actually going on. Is there any substance to this whole takeover news? Now, it all started last week. Now, if you don't know anything about the takeover and it's completely new to you, let's first jump into it and discuss where it all started. Now, before I do that, guys, make sure you hit the like button on this video, on this stream, live stream, whatever you want to say, because it helps it being sent out to lots of other Man United fans. And I don't need to repeat myself, because after I finish a live stream, I always get comments from subscribers or fans saying, "Oh, can you do another show? Can you do another update on what's going on and give me some information?" I'm thinking, I already did that. I've already done that. And they're like, "Oh, we missed it and we can't go back and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, right, okay, do you know what? Next time I'm live, I'm going to make sure that I ask the viewers to hit the like button so it gets sent out to lots of different fans out there who want to know any update on the takeover. But anyway, let's jump straight into the takeover news, because there's so much to discuss and I don't want to kind of go on and on with this live stream. I like to keep them under an hour, and the reason being is because then even after, you know, when someone's watching the live stream, going back and watching it, it's not like a 2-hour long live stream and people are trying to get the information from that time. So I'm trying to keep it as short as possible, give you as much information as possible in that time, and then I'll let you make up your own mind. First of all, I've got to give this notice out there. I don't know what's going to happen. Everyone expects you to know exactly what's going to happen. I don't know. Just like everybody out there, I don't know what's going to happen either on the takeover. All I'm doing is looking at the information and then giving it out to you guys and discussing it, because that's what we need to do. We need to see whether there is a potential takeover, how possible it is, and how likely it is that the Glazers are going to sell, and what's going to happen with INEOS. There's lots of questions about Jim Ratcliffe, because clearly he's missed the memo. He's missed the memo. He's not party to this. He gave an interview literally a day before all this news broke on the takeover. He gave an interview and he was discussing Man United and discussing his financial situation and everything else. And he looked fairly comfortable. He looked fairly comfortable talking about how he's going to give Ruben Amorim 3 years and so forth. And then he was asked the question about whether the Glazers would make a executive decision and maybe sack Ruben Amorim. And he said, "No, not possible. Not possible. I'm the one who's running everything essentially, and no one's going to make that decision but me." So you wouldn't expect someone like that to be given an interview knowing full well that there's possible investment to come and a possible takeover. So where did this news come from? Why is it making the rounds? Why is it causing such a stir? And why do Man United fans care? Well, we all know why we care, because we want the Glazers out. But let's quickly take a look at the original tweet that went out, and this was last week on October the 8th, that caused the stir, the one that actually caused an absolute uproar in the whole social media world and beyond. And it was this tweet by this guy called Turki Al-Sheikh. And if you don't know him, he is a boxing supremo, mogul, whatever you want to call him. He is someone who lives out in Saudi Arabia, and he is wealthy, filthy rich, and he represents the government of Saudi Arabia, the establishment. He represents them. He is actually the head of their sports division. He's there helping Saudi Arabia improve their sports side of things in across the country. And so he's trying to bring as much supporting events to Saudi Arabia and get them on the map, as you can say, right? Okay, so what he's done is brought boxing to Saudi Arabia, and he's done a very good job at doing so. Many people doubted that he would get this up and running, the boxing of all these boxers, top boxing events to take place out in Saudi Arabia. It was never done before. There's not many crowds there, but he said, no, I'm going to do this, and he put lots of money towards getting it done. So he's someone who is has got his own thing going on. And he's not someone who needs attention. He's got plenty of followers on X, and he is someone who didn't need to put this post out. That's what I'm trying to explain. So this post read, the best news I heard is that Manchester United is in advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. And then this just sent everyone in absolute meltdown. Everyone trying to work out whether this was true, whether it wasn't. And then he went on and doubled down on this news. The next day, or the day after, many people were still questioning whether this was true, whether he was just having a laugh, whether he was just out of it, and he just put this out there, one of those nights where he's just thinking, oh, I've got nothing to say, and let's just have a bit of a laugh and put this out there, just, see what comes of it. He's not like that. We've been told by people who know him that he's serious when it comes to this kind of stuff, business, sport, events, things like that. He's a serious guy, does not mess about. When he's telling you something or saying something, you better take it seriously. So that is his take on it. The next day he came out saying, look, I'm doubling down. I know of an investor that is interested in buying Man United. However, he cleared a few things up. Number one, he said it's not me. It's not anybody from Saudi Arabia, not from his nation. He said it is someone from the Middle East. It's a group of people who are looking to invest, and they're in advanced stages of buying Man United. So that just simply reconfirmed what he'd said, and everybody then just went absolutely crazy, and we're all been hoping that there's some substance to this. Then later on, earlier this week, we heard that there was a potential meeting between the representatives from UAE, an investment group from UAE, with those of the Glazers, some representatives from the Glazers meeting in London. No one's confirmed or denied that report. Now, what we can confirm in the last day or two is that the press and certain news agencies have reached out to the Glazer family to get a quote from them, to ask for a denial or something to say that yes, there are talks going on, one or the other. Now, it's quite usual for someone like the Glazers or their press office to turn around and say, no, it's absolute rubbish. This is rubbish. There's nothing to it, and move on. But they didn't do that. They did not do that. Now, this is pivotal to this whole takeover rumour and reports and scenario, because I think there's something there then. If they didn't come out and say, no, we're not in talks with an investor, because it's quite easy. They could have done that. We heard immediately from Manchester United and Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS saying there's no such thing. We're not party to any talks of anybody coming in looking to invest in Man United at this stage. So they ruled it out immediately. However, the Glazers are completely silent on this issue. No one's saying anything. We've not got any information from the Glazers about what is going on. And that could mean a lot of things. That could mean a lot of things. Now, we had a tweet, or we had Laurie Whitwell. He's a journalist with The Athletic, and obviously focused quite a lot on Man United. And he came out and said this on his show. He said on Turki Al-Sheikh's tweet about United being in advanced talks to sell to an investor. If he puts something out there like that, there's some reason to do it. I would say, however, I've got no information to a degree that United have taken back by it. That being said, the nuance of this is that there is a relationship between Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Glazer family, an unusual construct with them being majority owners. Sir Jim is running the footballing side of things. We all know he is. He has got a drag along clause, which means that he could be forced to sell his shares in Man United if the right offer comes along. So if this investment group come along and say, we want the entirety of Man United, and they're talking to the Glazers and only the Glazers, the Glazers can go back to Jim Ratcliffe, even though Jim Ratcliffe's not party to any of these discussions or any negotiations. The Glazers can go back to Jim Ratcliffe and say, we're looking to sell the entirety of Man United to these new investors, and we want you to sell your shares. And a part of their contracts, a part of all this what's going on, is that the Glazers can force Jim Ratcliffe to sell his shares as long as the price being paid by the new investors matches the price that he paid initially for these shares. That is what is called a drag along clause. It's part of the contract that he signed with the Glazers when he took ownership of the minority shares. And the Glazers essentially can have their cake and eat it. They can force Jim Ratcliffe to sell up. Now, the question is whether these investors are looking to buy Jim Ratcliffe's shares. Currently, as we're sitting here and we're looking at what's being said, it looks like they're not. It looks like they're coming in and discussing just with the Glazers, because the Glazers aren't saying anything. The Glazers aren't saying yes or no to any purchase, but they clearly got something there. There's something going on. There's something going on that we're not quite sure about, that we are not being told by the Glazers. And Laurie Whitwell says that, look, he goes on to say in his tweet or in his interview, he says, look, this guy, Turki Al-Sheikh, doesn't need to put this out there. He doesn't need to put this message out there. He doesn't need the traction. And if he's putting this message out there, if he's putting this tweet out there, there has to be some substance to it. He's not making this up. So there is something going on. We're not aware of it. But then he kind of concludes, rightly so. He says, well, when have the Glazers ever been open with the press? They've never told the press anything about what's going on. Even when it involved the initial takeover, when Sheikh Yassin was involved from Qatar and Jim Ratcliffe, even then, the press had no clue what was going on. Absolutely no clue. They were trying to second guess what the Glazers were doing, but the Glazers were not letting anything leak. So in that whole process, nobody had a clue until it was announced by the Glazers that, oh, we're selling part of the club to Jim Ratcliffe. But before that, everyone was in the dark. There's absolutely nobody out there. You can say, like Fabrizio Romano or David Ornstein or anybody like that. Nobody knew anything. And right now, no news doesn't necessarily mean that nothing's going on behind closed doors. In fact, we believe from what we're hearing is that there are definitely talks going on behind closed doors with the Glazers. From all this information we're getting, it's just not coincidence that we're getting so much information about what's going on, how the shares are structured, what's going on in terms. Actually, that reminds me, share price. Now, United's share price, let's quickly look at this, or else I'm going to forget. Let me show you the United share price, because there's lots of complicated things that are taking place behind the scenes that we all need to be aware of as Man United fans to work out whether there is genuinely something going on or whether we're just kind of all getting gassed for no reason and we're just getting dragged into this hole which it's quite easily done because we want to get rid of the Glazers. So when you want to get rid of the Glazers, if we hear a sniff of a takeover, we are ecstatic. We want it to be done and we want them out as quick as possible. So let me just show you the share price. So this is a share price. So if you look back, we've got 18th September, 26th of September, 6th of October, and then boom, it jumps up. Suddenly after 6th of October, it jumps up. Why does it jump up? Well, it's 8th of October. 8th of October is when the guy makes Sheikh Al-Turki drops his social media tweet on X. He drops that United are in talks. And then boom, the share price jumps up. It jumps up from, well, let me see, it's at 15.21 and then it goes up. This is 9th of October. It's slowly going up, and then it jumps up even further, and it ends up at 17. And right now, it's at 16.9, just under 17. So that, in terms of a jump, is pretty big. In terms of Man United, it is big. So if you look back, let's take a look back at the entire year. So United have been more or less going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and then they've been fairly down, fairly steady, and then boom, it's going up. It's going up, and it could mean that, look, these rumours make the share price go up. It's going to come back down again, I suspect. I don't suspect it's going to carry on going up and up because we're not hearing anything concrete. So when you're not hearing anything concrete, investors, whoever's bought the shares, kind of panic and they think, all right, okay, maybe we've jumped at buying these shares too early and the price has gone up. Let's sell it again and then wait on. We know that when the rumor hit that Sheikh Yassim and the Qataris were looking to buy United, the share price jumped up like huge. It went crazy. Actually, I'll show you it. I'll show you that because it's really interesting. So let's look at here. This is October 2022, and then in November, I think it was the 4th of November, is when is it the 4th? I think it was the 4th, yeah, let me just see. Yeah, 18th of November. I think there's some time here where the Glazers announced a strategic investment opportunities. They were looking for investment opportunities. It went all wild. Everyone went crazy because we were like, yes, come on, get in there. The Glazers are selling up and we're going to finally get rid of them. It's going to be great news. Thank God for this. And we were all so pleased that finally the Glazers are going to sell up. And Sheikh Yassim got involved, and there was all talk about how much money he's going to invest. He's going to clear the debt, number one, of United. Then he's going to invest another couple of £1 billion in the infrastructure. And then there was talk about another £1 billion in recruitment, in bringing the best players to Man United. That's the kind of money we were talking about. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. In fact, today is the very same day that we got a tweet from Fabrizio Romano. We got a tweet saying that the Qataris have pulled out on the bidding war or the purchase of Man United because they've failed to agree a price, a valuation with the Glazers. So before they were going to make a formal bid, they refused to make a formal bid because they couldn't agree a valuation with the Glazers. The Glazers wanted in excess of £6 billion. Yeah, that's what they wanted. And well, upon the share price, United were worth about 3 billion. So that was a massive discrepancy. And the Qataris were like, look, we're not going to overpay it for United. We need to keep the money in the bank so we can spend it on the club because it needs a lot of financial help once we've actually bought the club. And yeah, you don't blame them. You want you want an owner to come in and actually spend some money. Sanjay, welcome, mate. Well done. Thank you for logging on. Welcome. Let us know your thoughts. Everybody else who's watching, let us know your thoughts about the takeover. Do you believe these stories? Do you believe these rumours? Are you positive about it? Are you negative? We did do a show a couple of days ago about this very topic, and we were discussing how a possible meeting might have taken place down in London between the parties concerned. This is the UAE investment group and the Glazers, and we were talking about maybe, just maybe, there might be something to this. We've heard from other journalists now in that time. So we've heard from Andy Mitten as well. He also is from The Athletic, also has commented on he's had his say on what he feels these rumours are and whether there's some actual truth to them. And he said, look, I've not found any evidence of an investment being true. I'm a little bit skeptical because I've seen people before say things that end up not being true, and then they say, whoa, I'm only saying what I've heard. When they realise there's a level of scrutiny to this, they have to back up what they say. So he's talking about Sheikh Al-Sheikh saying, well, look, he's made this tweet, but he needs to understand, like, you can't just say these things without backing it up. So has he made this tweet without knowing full well what's going on? He said that talks are advanced stage, but are they really? If they were, why haven't we heard anything? Why haven't we heard confirmation from the Glazers that yes, we are in advanced talks with an investor to sell our shares? Why haven't we heard something from INEOS saying, yes, there are talks going on, but our shares are protected, we're not going to sell our shares, things like that. But we haven't heard anything. But again, if you look back at the track record of the Glazers, this is how they operate. They don't actually give any information out. Do you not remember? They made that statement in 2022 about looking for outside investment, strategic investment, and then they went completely eerily quiet. They didn't make any other public statement. They didn't say that they were doing this or that, or there's investors looking what offers they've received. They did not give any information to the press nor to the fans. So nobody knew what was actually going on, what process was going on, how many parties were looking to invest in Man United, what offers were being made. Nothing. We got nothing. You were completely in the dark, not just as fans, but as the press. You know, the press who normally weed out all the information, normally who go in there and get all this leaks information from, but nothing. There was no leaks, nothing. The Glazers were like a closed off house. There was nothing coming out of their family. And then we only got the news of Jim Ratcliffe being chosen really late on in I think it was Christmas Eve or something. And that is how they operate. So if we're thinking that suddenly the Glazers are going to come out and tell us that, oh, they're having talks with investment companies out in the UAE about taking over and selling up their shares, we need to think again. That's not going to happen. That's not the way the Glazers operate. They're not going to do that. They're going to actually come out and not say anything. They're going to keep it completely stump until the very last second or moments of it. So I think this whole tweet by Sheikh Al-Turki, that must have caught them off guard. Maybe they weren't expecting that. So maybe that's put them on the back foot. Maybe they're not happy with it. But they must have something in there, in their contracts, because they're very good at making sure that everyone is quiet, does not leak anything. And I'm sure if there's anything serious behind the scenes in terms of negotiations, they would have already made someone sign a non-disclosure agreement of some kind saying you can't go out to the press and you can't discuss that, you know, you're making this offer with us and you're in negotiations with us. Just you can't say anything. So I think that's what they would have done. So if we're expecting a possible investment group to come out and confirm that, oh, we're going in for United, no. This is as much as we're going to get in terms of Sheikh Al-Turki saying what he said. And I think he's going to now watch from the sidelines as well. I think the only reason why he came out and even made that tweet is because he's a Man United fan. He's a Man United fan who wants to see the back of the Glazers. And yeah, look, it's caused a complete uproar. There's lots of people out there who still do not believe that this is actually going to happen. And I must admit, I'm a bit skeptical as well. I want it to happen. I really do. I want the Glazers out. But I can't see it being a simple process. And the reason why it's not a simple process is that even if the Glazers agree to sell their shares, we've still got Jim Ratcliffe sat on about 29% of shares. So he's got his shares there. And from what we're hearing from INEOS, they're not going to probably sell. They want to keep hold of Man United. Jim Ratcliffe himself, in the recent interview he gave to the Times Business or something, he said he believes that Man United will be worth a lot more in the coming years. That does not sound like someone who is willing to let go of his share capital in Man United. He believes that it'll be a success. He believes that his investment will pay off, and hence why he's putting so much work and effort into sorting Man United out. These are not the actions of someone who's got one eye at someone else coming in and taking over. That's not what he's doing. You can see he's hands-on with the management and Ruben Amorim and the people that he's brought on. These are important things to take into account. So Jim Ratcliffe is not going anywhere. In fact, I believe that if an offer is tabled by an investment group out in the UAE to the Glazers, I get this feeling Jim Ratcliffe might just try and match their offer. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? What if Jim Ratcliffe took over the entirety of the club? Would you be happy with that? Look, I've said it many times. I haven't got a problem with that. I haven't got a problem as long as Jim Ratcliffe can actually afford to run the club and not take on further debt. That's what I want. Can Jim Ratcliffe clear the debt, which right now is in excess of £1 billion? What the Glazers have essentially given as a gift to Man United, that debt, can he clear that? And can he go and then spend another 2 billion, at least 2 billion on a new stadium? These are the questions that fans have to then put to Jim Ratcliffe. It's all well and good saying, I want to be part of this club and I want to take over the ownership. But if you haven't got the money to spend, then you're not going to be any better than the Glazers. If you're going to go out there and get a loan for a £2 billion stadium, that's scary. That's scary for a club that was never in debt. That's what the problem is. For most Man United fans, when we hear that an owner's going to come in and pile on further debt to the club, that scares most fans, because we know that ultimately we might have to bloody pay for it. We might have to pay for it in our seat prices. You know, it's already hard enough to go and pay, get a season ticket or go out there and watch United. It's difficult for most fans, for most genuine fans, the ones who actually want to go and support their club. They don't get the chance. And then, yes, that's why the atmosphere is shit in Old Trafford, because most of the people in there are not actual fans. They're there for the day out. It's like they're holiday makers. They're there just simply, having a nice time. If you turn up to Old Trafford, it's really difficult, because I don't want to criticise everybody, but I have to call it out. Look, I'm a Man United fan. I go in there, and most times when I'm leaving Old Trafford, I've lost my voice. That's how much shouting I do. That's how much screaming and shouting I do. I'm always, 100%. I go in there, I swear, I go into Old Trafford and I say, right, today I'm not going to shout. Today I'm going to be as quiet as possible. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to kind of cheer my team along, but not shout. But by the end of the match, I've lost my voice. I've done it so many times now. I've lost my voice and I'm like, oh God. But coming back to most of the fans, or some of the fans in there, are not there as hardcore fans. They're there just to kind of fill the seats. They're there who can afford to pay for these seats. And if we're going to build a new stadium and it's going to cost us a lot of money, and if Jim Ratcliffe can't afford to pay for it and he's taken a loan out or he's done something else, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to simply turn around and say, right, we're going to put the prices up. Yeah, initially we might not get the price hike, but I think once everything settles down and there's more people and they can see that it's getting packed out with 100,000 fans each year, I can't see any other way of paying off that debt. So they'll just, of course, that's how business people think. They think about, oh, I need to cut costs here, I need to cut costs there, I need to do this, I need to hike up the prices here. It's all about finances. And if you watch the recent Jim Ratcliffe interview with the Times business, he's talking about cutting costs in his INEOS business. He's talking about how he's shutting down places and how he's cutting costs. And look, it scares me, because I think this guy, he's strictly about business. Yes, he says he's the Man United fan and he wants United to do well on the pitch, but I think ultimately his goal is all about making sure that United are profitable for him, and his investment is protected. I can't see it any other way. Red says, why would a minority owner pay off the debt? Yeah, look, he's come in. And, well, if I'm talking about if he takes over the entirety of Man United. So when I say Jim Ratcliffe paying off the debt, I'm talking about if he comes in, if he takes over Man United, you'd want him to pay off the debt, surely. I mean, that's the other offers that are being tabled. If we go back to Sheikh Yassim, one of the reasons why he didn't want to overpay the Glazers was because he had already set aside, again, these are reports about what he was going to do, and so you've got to take them with a pinch of salt, but the reports were that he's setting aside 2 billion for other investment needed in Man United. So I'm taking it. I'm looking at it, maybe thinking, okay, so what he's probably thinking is, currently I'm going to pay 4 bill or whatever to the Glazers. Then I've got 2 more billion, 1 billion to clear off the debt, and another billion to maybe invest in the infrastructure and things like that. That's what we were all thinking that's what they'd be doing. So Sheikh Yassim obviously saw that, look, I need to invest a lot of money in it. Maybe some other investors coming in might be thinking the same thing. You've got to remember, they're looking at it from the books and the finances that they've been given, the figures that they've been given. And if you're buying a club that's already in £1 billion debt, you're going to think twice about investing in it, because immediately, the moment you walk in, you're taking on that debt. So the Glazers clearly don't care about the debt. Jim Ratcliffe, I'm not quite sure what he thinks. I'm not quite sure. Look, we know he's invested his own money into United since he's been here, so he's done a lot more than the Glazers. So those fans who are completely against Jim Ratcliffe, I'm not completely against Jim Ratcliffe. I believe that, look, he's come in, he's sorted things out, he's done things that are much more positive than what the Glazers have done in the entirety of being the owners of United. I mean, Jim Ratcliffe, in the short time, at least has come in and he's brought in the right people who are running the club. So we've got Omar Brada, Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth, names like that have come in and started sorting United out. So he's put in the people who know about football and know how to run a football club. So them are the positives. Negatives are that he's not really looked to clear any of the debt. And now he himself has confessed that, look, we've got issues because we want to build this stadium, but we haven't got the finances. The government aren't going to fund it. Yes, they might fund some of the development around the stadium, but they're not actually going to fund anything when it comes to building the stadium itself. So United have to go and find that money themselves. And I think it might have been even where Jim Ratcliffe has approached the Glazers and said, guys, we need to sit down now and you need to invest some money into the club. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised where he's had a meeting with them and he's told them, right, we've got the plans, we've developed these plans, and we are now looking to build a new stadium. So it's time to put some money in. And the Glazers probably looked at each other thinking, we're not putting any money in. We're not putting a single penny in. So maybe they've gone back and thought, do you know what? I think it's about time we sell up now, because we've got Jim Ratcliffe who's calling us out, telling us that, oh, look, you guys, let's build this stadium. We need to invest our own money into this and we might get it back. And the Glazers probably think, nah, we don't want any of this, thank you very much. We would rather walk off with a record profit of billions of pounds and walk off and enjoy our investment somewhere else. That's what I think could be happening. But again, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know whether Jim Ratcliffe is even considering putting his own money in or the Glazers' money in. There are talks about them going out and looking for other investors who will just like getting a loan essentially from another investment group that will just fund the stadium. So they will have the rights all over the stadium, and the board or the owners will pay them back in interest. That's the most likely thing to happen if we do not get new owners. But I don't like the thought of that. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like the thought of more people coming in and jumping in and making it a complete circus, a complete shit show when it comes to running Man United. I don't want that. I want a decent owner to come in, and I just want them to stabilise the club. I want them to clear everything, all the debt, and I want them to actually start looking at improving things on the pitch. Anyway, moving on to something else. We again on the Glazers and INEOS and this drag along clause. Now this is quite important. Okay, so this is quite important because there's a few dates that we need to keep in check here. So you might have already heard that February 2027 is a date, and many people have mentioned it before. You're probably thinking, what? Why? Why is that important? So Laurie Whitwell, on the Glazers and INEOS and the drag-along clause and it expiring, he said this. He said, the drag-along rights in this aspect are a facility for the Glazers to force Ratcliffe to sell his stake in the club. They had 18 months period exclusivity where that could not happen. But that has now passed. So about a month ago, that moment was passed where Jim Ratcliffe had the exclusivity to buy United within that time. So if Jim Ratcliffe wanted to buy Man United before anyone else came in with an offer, he could have done that within that 18-month period. He could have gone back to the Glazers and said, I want to buy the rest of the club. I want to buy the rest of your shares. Here you go. Here's the money, and give over the club to me now. That didn't happen. So I know there's some fans out there saying, no, Jim Ratcliffe, can buy the club and wants to buy the club and, hasn't had the opportunity. No, he has actually had the opportunity to buy off the Glazers. In fact, he had the opportunity to buy off the Glazers back when Sheikh Yassin was involved. They offered him the entirety of the club. It was Jim Ratcliffe who said he's not in a position to buy the entirety of the club at the valuation set by the Glazers. So then they agreed upon, obviously, a minority ownership. And so Jim Ratcliffe bought a part of the club and came in and obviously has been running the football inside of things since then. But anyway, coming back to this, and now that exclusivity has passed, we're at a point where theoretically the Glazers could sell the whole club to somebody else and Ratcliffe would not be able to stop it. The only thing at the moment is that the share price up until February 2027 is at $33 per share or more, which is what Ratcliffe bought his shares for. So he gets his money back basically. Past that point, so past February 2027, the Glazers could sell the club for less at that point. So there's no bar there. It's interesting when you speak to people about this and in terms of what this means. Some say it's in the Glazers' interest to get the deal in place before 2027 because it gives competitive tension and gets them higher priced for their shares. Also, after that point, why would anyone want to buy the club now? Because they have the automatic minimum there at $33 per share. Why wouldn't you just wait until February 2027 in theory and then turn up and pay less than that? So right now, what he's trying to explain is that United, any investor coming in has to match Jim Ratcliffe's price. I've got Dave Matthew. Thank you, Dave, for making your comment. I saw Jim's first refusal and matching clause already passed. As of right now, if a suitable offer comes in and Glazers accept, he's contractually obliged to sell his shares. Spot on. Well done. Good comment that. Yeah, that's it. That's what, from what I'm reading, what I've seen already, and this was... The problem is, Dave, do you not find it odd that Jim Ratcliffe signed up to this? How the hell did he agree to this? I mean, it's weird, isn't it? That he could be dragged along and all his efforts that he's put in, everything that he's done so far will go down the well. It's nothing. He'll get nothing for it. He'll get no credit for it, even though he's actually been the one who's actually been working hard trying to sort United out. Why would he do that? And that's what confuses me. Because I'm looking at it just like you guys are, just like the fans out there. I'm no different to you guys. All I do is I look at it in detail. I'll go do a lot more research. And initially, when the takeover was taking place with Sheikh Yassin and Jim Ratcliffe, I called it then. I called it. If you go back to the shows I was doing then, I called it then. I said, even before, this is a month before Sheikh Yassin took over, or not Sheikh Yassin, before Jim Ratcliffe took over. Months before I said it, I said, Jim Ratcliffe's going to win this bid. He's going to get the club. He's going to get the club because he's essentially giving the Glazers everything right now, and they get to keep their cake. They get to keep their cake. They get to keep everything as it is. So the status quo doesn't actually change for the Glazers. They get money that they're not expecting in from the Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS, and they get to hold on to their club and get to hold on to their shares, wait for a better day to come along when the share price increases and they get even more money, and then they walk away. But I think Jim Ratcliffe should have been alive to the fact that the Glazers wanted out back then. The Glazers wanted out. Now they've been biding their time, waiting for someone else to come along, and boom, we're getting the news that there's some investment group out in UAE that can come out and buy United outright. Now, when we're talking about money, and look, 5 billion, 6 billion is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but to us guys, but to the billionaires out there, it's loose pocket change. When this news first broke, if those of you watching the show when I first did the show, and I said it wasn't quite clear who was actually going to be the investor, whether it was someone from the UAE or whether it was someone linked to Sheikh Al-Turki out in Saudi Arabia. And I said just days before, weeks before, I was reading an article about how an investment group from Saudi Arabia bought out EA Sports, which is a game manufacturing company out in Toronto in Canada, and they paid, wait for it, they paid £57 billion. I think it was 50. It was over 50. I know it's over 50. I remember reading it about 5 times, thinking, wait, I need to read that again. How many billion? How many billion have they spent on this game manufacturer? And they do. It does like the FIFA's, the EA Sports thing, and EA FC right now it's called. But that's what they do. They make these games, and they make the same for, like, I think they do Madden and out in United States. They do all these games and stuff. But they paid £50+ billion. United, on the other hand, 5 billion, 6 billion, it's nothing. So when he made this tweet, and there was people saying, "Oh, look, he's not serious. Surely he's not serious. How can they come in and if they want to buy United? If Sheikh Al-Turki, wanted to buy United, he could do that. He could do that. The only issue is obviously running and going through all these hoops and procedures that you have to go through to buy United, and it's maybe not as easy as we think when it comes to making sure everything's above board and everything gets a green light from the FA and things like that. So things like that are not the FA, but the Premier League. Things like that are problematic for new owners. We saw even when the Saudis took over Newcastle, it wasn't straightforward. But I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that we do get some kind of confirmation from the Glazers. That's my issue right now. The only thing I think right now is that we need some confirmation from either a Class A journalist or someone from the Glazers, a representative, to say, yes, there's something that we're exploring. And then that this is happening. It's for sure it's happening. Right now, we're getting denial from Man United, we're getting denial from INEOS, and we are not getting any news from the Glazers. But like I said, that doesn't mean that it's negative. That means that the Glazers are up to their old games. We know what the Glazers are like. We all, as Man United fans, are well accustomed to the Glazers. We know exactly how they operate, and they operate silently and deadly. They're just awful when it comes to Man United. Dave says people really fathom the deep pockets of money these UAE guys. People really don't fathom the deep pockets of the money these UAE guys have. When they get United, the revenues will be astronomical, since they'll develop not only Man United but the city too. Absolutely. Look, I'm going to say something controversial. You might like it, you might not. But look, I'm a realist. I'm a realist, and I'm going to be upfront with you guys. How many are you in here? Right, okay, there's 36 of us. Right, 36 of us in here right now watching. By the way, make sure you hit the like button. Why is there only 11 likes, guys? Hit that like button. It's not costing you anything, and obviously more fans get to watch it. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Anyway, so I'm going to say something controversial. When you go across the city and you see what the investment group, the Dubai investment group, have done to Man City and the area around there, and the facilities that they've provided, it is breathtaking, absolutely brilliant. Not just what they've done for Man City as a club, not just that, but the area surrounding that part of the city. It looks amazing, and that is what happens when you get a serious owner, when you get an owner who actually gives a shit about the club. That's the difference. And look, I like Jim Ratcliffe, but do I think he's going to make a huge difference to Man United? Not really, because he's a bit of a penny pincher. He's a bit of a penny pincher. He is someone who cares about the final line and what is being made and the margins and all that kind of rubbish. You sit down, you watch him, and he's a penny pincher. He talks. He's like, oh yeah, we were looking at the figures and we were paying this many thousand to the Man United legends. The charity that's set up by Man United that they were putting money into funding these legends who had, played in a time when footballers weren't getting thousands of pounds per week. These footballers who were playing for Man United back then, maybe getting £100 or a couple of hundred a week. They're not loaded. They're not rich. They're not rich footballers. They barely get a chance to even come into United and watch them. So United had a trust fund or something like that, it was like a charity that would fund these ex-players and just, look after them. And Jim Ratcliffe came in and he thought, we're paying that much to a couple of thousand, whatever it is, 20,000, 40,000, I think it was. I can't remember how much the figure was, but it was substantial to most people, but not to billionaires, not to Manchester United. And he said, right, we're going to cut that. We're not doing that anymore. Okay, that's a bit odd. Okay, then what did he do? Then he's like, oh right, okay, we'll cut out lunches, free lunches for staff and everybody else at Old Trafford or Carrington, whatever it was. Carrington, I believe it was. Again, why are you looking at that? You should be looking at other directions. You should be looking at other places where we've been rinsed. Look at the bloody interest we're paying each year. Look at that, in millions. We're paying millions of pounds in interest because the Glazers have put all this debt on the club. If you really wanted to make a difference, if you really thought, right, okay, I'm going to cost cut, you should have gone straight back to the Glazers and said, guys, you need to sort this flipping debt out. You've put all this debt on us and we're having to pay all this interest. So you need to take all this out. You need to take all this debt out, at least half it, put some fucking money towards it, clear the bloody thing off. Does not make sense to me how he could then turn around and start taking these measures, cost-cutting measures against all these others, simple things that should be there at any good football club. You should look after your staff. You should look after the people around there who've been working there for years, 20 plus years working there. Suddenly they get the sack. Suddenly they're like, okay, you're not needed. Not good. It does not look good. The whole look of that is just wrong for Jim Ratcliffe himself, and he needs to wake up and realise that that's not a good look to have as a billionaire owner of a Man United, a club that's entrenched in history and the people around the club. You can't do that kind of stuff. Dave, I agree with you. I don't think many fans understand what a difference these guys could make. And there is an urgency to this. There is an urgency to a takeover. It's not just some of us are not just sitting here wishing for the takeover for the sake of getting a takeover. We're wishing because we know that every year that we do not get the funding, every year that we're not getting the right players and not putting in the right processes and putting in the money, we're gonna fall far behind. Yes, right now in this year we had record revenues and that is something to celebrate. But we've got to ask the question: where do they get these revenues from? Where do these record revenues come from? I'll tell you where. From us. We're the fans. The billions of fans around the world are what give Man United that much credence and that much revenue, because there's sponsors out there like Adidas and all the rest. If there was no fans of Man United, they wouldn't put all this money down. They know that immediately when they sponsor a club like Man United, boom, they get access to over 1 billion fans. Everything. And that's what makes still now commercial sense to these sponsors, because they look at Man United and think they've got loyal fans, they've got fans all over the globe who give a shit about this club. And that's where we get the revenue from. So it's very important that, look, we have owners that can see that and say, right, okay, we're actually going to put our money where our mouth is. Dave Taylor, thank you for joining us, mate. You say the club needs fresh new owners. Yeah, absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. I mean, do you know the amount of discussions I've had with Man United fans and others, there's only one group of fans who actually want the Glazers to stay. Only one group. And those are rival fans. I mean, you can speak to any rival fans. I've got friends who are Liverpool fans and stuff, and whenever they sit down, the last thing they want is United to be sold by the Glazers. They love the Glazers. They love the Glazers. They can't get enough of them. If they could, they would fund the Glazers to stay. That's how much they love the Glazers, because they can see what they've done to United. They've brought United to its knees from where we were, what we were doing, and suddenly what they've done to United is criminal. It's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. Geordie Boy says, this ain't happening. United are in mad debt. Who wants to take over at this club? Yeah, look, I said it just, you might have missed the early part of the show, which I said, look, any owner that's coming in and they're looking at this club, they're looking at it and thinking, oh, right, okay, we'll buy this club. And then the Glazers are like, okay, guys, we want 5 billion plus from you. And you're like, okay, so I'll give you 5 billion and I'll walk into this club and immediately I'm going to be slapped with a debt of 1 billion plus a stadium which is literally falling apart. You go into Old Trafford and it is like you're walking back into time. It is like you're walking back into time. If someone puts you inside the Old Trafford and you're walking up the stairs and they don't tell you where you are, they blindfolded you, brought you into the stadium and said, right, okay, you're in, you would not be able to guess that is Man United. You think it's some other League 1 or 2 stadium. That's how poor it is at so many levels. And as fans, we have been complaining. There are fans out there that have been saying that, look, there's this issue, there's that issue, and they get silenced because it's not something that we want to really talk about. You know, fans don't really want... As fans, we don't really want to get involved in who's the owner and what they're doing. We don't really want to be troubled with that. And I get that, because I don't want to be talking about the owners. I want to be talking about the football. I want to be looking forward to the Liverpool game. I want to be talking about transfers and what's going on and who we're going to sign and who we're not going to sign and things like that, because they're fun. They're fun things to discuss. Discussing how bad our owners are is not on the agenda. We don't really want to be talking about that. But then we've got to come to some kind of realization that without a change of ownership, we're going to be languishing here. And like Geordie Boy said, who the flip wants to come in and take over? No one wants to take over. And that's, you know what, we might be sat here thinking, oh, you know what, this is brilliant. United were put up for sale by the Glazers. How come they didn't sell? They didn't want to sell, maybe. That's why Jim Ratcliffe came up and bought only a minority stake in everything. But I've been told many times by the people in the know, working behind the scenes, in finance departments and in the legal departments, and they've said many times, I've been told this, which is, no, the Glazers were actually looking to sell. They were looking to sell. They wanted to sell. They wanted out at that point. They didn't have any intention of sticking it out. The only issue that the Glazers had was no one was willing to pay the price that they put on Man United. That's the problem. That is the problem, because the Glazers feel that United is worth a lot more than any other investor feels it is. So there's all these investors out there who are itching to get at United, itching to buy United, but they couldn't afford to because they realised, wait up, there's so much debt at this club. There's so much other issues. Look, no matter how much money you've got, one thing you realise is when you're sat in company of these people who are billionaires, millionaires, whatever, when you're sat in company of rich people, they care about the money. They care about the money. The reason why they're even there is because they're good at dealing with money. They don't like having their pants pulled down. They don't like overpaying for things. You know, they're just like every other human. You know, if they walk in to, say, a shop and they want to buy a pack of crisps and I get charged £1 for it, and a millionaire walks in and they say, oh, we're going to up the price to £5 for you because you're a rich fella. You're a rich guy, so we're gonna charge you £5 for this crisp packet. no matter how rich you are, they're going to say, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying that. Because the next person you'd sell for £1, you're asking £5 from me. I'm not doing that. And you'd walk out. That's exactly like what's going on with the Glazers and the sale of Man United. Just because there's a billionaire turning up looking to invest in Man United, like Sheikh Yassim, just because he's telling you, I've got a budget of 7 billion to spend on Man United, doesn't mean that he's willing to pay you that 7 billion to take over the club in its entirety. So the problem with Sheikh Yassim was that his group, the people who were in discussions, had already put down the offer. They'd said, look, this is how much we're willing to pay you guys. And then to appease the fans, they were saying, we're going to put down another 2 billion to invest in the club. As soon as the Glazers found out that there was further money, there was more money on the table, but it was going to be spent on the club once they left, they were like, no, we're not having any of this. We want that money. We want that money. That's what it is. Guys, drop your comments below. Let me know what you think about the ownership. Possible sale, possible takeover of someone else coming in. We were going through the latest news from a few other people out there. There was also this news from Ben Jacobs. So he spoke on this offer as well, and he said it's not the Saudis. I'm getting denials from sources that it's Qatar and that it's Sheikh Yassim may return. So it's not Sheikh Yassim. So that's been ruled out by Ben Jacobs, who's quite well connected out in the Middle East right now. He knows, he gets all the latest information and news on the Saudi League and transfers and things like that. So he's well connected. So he's said that it's not the Qataris that are coming back to discuss and negotiate with the Glazers, and it's not the Saudis, but there is a group specifically from the UAE that are interested and are exploring whether or not they can put together a consortium and have actually approached some ex-Manchester United players not to invest but to be ambassadors. That's where we're at the moment. This group may be advanced in terms of internally putting together itself, but they haven't placed a bid, nor have they alerted the Glazers yet. We'll have to wait and see how it develops. That was Ben Jacobs talking to TalkSport, I believe, about this potential takeover. So he's ruled out the Saudis, he's ruled out the Qataris, the two big boys, and then he's saying, but there is a group in the UAE that have come together, that they've also approached ex-Man United players. We did break this news a couple of days ago, actually. I think it was Monday morning, where we said that there's talk of a few ex-Man United players actually advising this group of investors out in the UAE. So that's it proves to be accurate to some degree. And then he says, but at this moment they haven't actually made a bid. So the talk of them being in advanced discussions is not accurate from his point of view. But again, everyone's taking a shot in the dark here, because we know that the Glazers don't let a peep out. They don't let anything leak out, so we don't know. Dave says, by injecting fresh equity, the UAE consortium can actually bring in cash that is used straight away to retire the loans. These guys' main focus is betterment of the club, not milking the money. Yeah, it's right, because Dave, you're spot on, man. You're spot on. I think you dropped some serious facts here, but which is, look. These investors that we're talking about out from the UAE, we've seen their CVs. We've seen what they like. We've seen what they've done with Man City. We've seen what they've done, what they're doing with Newcastle. We can see how they come and approach their clubs. They don't do things like other owners have done in the past. And they definitely don't do things like the Glazers. They're not coming in to rinse the club of whatever they can make from it. That's not the approach that they've had. They've not had that with Newcastle. They've not had that with Man City. They've not had that with PSG. They've not had that with any other club that they come in and actually take over. We've seen that these guys from the Middle East, when they're coming in, they're actually willing to put the money down. And it's a long-term project. They're not in it for short-term gains. They're not there thinking, right, okay, in I'm investing this many billions in the club, and next year I want to take out this much dividends. Not what the Glazers did. That's exactly what the Glazers did. The Glazers have always been looking at how to take more and more money out of the club. Ratcliffe hasn't done that so far, but he's also not really come in saying, right, okay, I'm going to take over certain things. But arguably, I think there was a point made by somebody else early on. Who was it? Reds. I think it's, I don't know what the second part of it, but Reds made a good point saying, why would a minority owner come in and pay off the debt? And yeah, I think that's what he's probably thinking. He's probably thinking, wait up, I'm not going to spend more than I'm meant to be spending because I'm not the majority owner. I'm a minority owner, and I'm going to spend as much as I'm meant to be spending. But then, look, that's an unfair deal, because no matter who you're in partnership with, if you're doing all the work, if you're putting your share into it and doing everything, and there's a majority owner, a partner who's not doing anything, then you're going to give up after a while, aren't you? After a while, you're going to be like, oh, forget this. Why am I doing all this work for? Because these guys don't give a shit. They don't care whether I'm doing all this work, and they're not willing to put their money into it. So I'm always on to a loser. I'm always fighting an uphill struggle, and you're going to give up. And I think that's what we've got with the current structure of the owners. We've got Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS on one side, who to some degree care. I'm not sure. I don't know fully what their intentions are just yet. It's too early. But they do care about what's going on the pitch. So I give them some credit there. Then you've got the Glazers, majority ownership. They don't actually care about anything. And so it's not a really good cocktail right now. It doesn't actually work. And for Man United fans, those who can see, we can see that this isn't working. This is not working, and we need something else to happen. We need someone else to come in. And I think the worrying thing for United is the continual debt that's mounting and getting larger and larger and larger. I mean, even there was some talk about, even in this summer transfer window, how United were using credit facilities. They were not putting their own money in. They were looking at short-term credit facilities to go and purchase more players. And it's scary because there's millions of pounds of debt still owed to clubs around Europe for having bought their players. Yeah, that's scary, isn't it? You don't know what, to get your head around this is so difficult. It's so like, what? So United, this giant of a club, have been going in there and doing these transfers, getting these players in, saying, we owe you one, I owe you kind of thing, right? Okay, we owe you this much money, and we'll give it to you in installments and things like that. Okay, maybe some would argue that that's for PSR rules and things like that, but even if it is, we still owe a lot of money, and we still haven't paid these clubs for the players that we've got in, and maybe even sold. You know what I mean? We might have even sold players like Sancho. We might have bought him on debt, and I don't even know how it works after that. Dave says fans have PTSD from Glazers ownership. That's why if you mention things like clearing debt and Manchester regeneration, it sounds foreign and impossible to them since they've never seen it here. Yeah. I think there's a generation of fans. There is a generation of fans who don't know anything different, who've never seen anything different. And there's a generation of fans who don't know anything other than the Glazers, who've not seen anything other than the Glazers. So they've got used to, being losers. They've got used to having United struggle. But there are a generation of fans who know, look, United were massive and still are. We're still live and kicking. But these guys are like parasites. They're sucking the blood out of United. They're sucking every single ounce of money, everything that they can get their hands on. They are sucking us dry. And look, there's many a times when fans have got together and said enough's enough, we need them out, and we've obviously had protests and things like that to get them out. But these guys, they will not let go until they get what they want, and that is a big payday. And there's no one in this world, or no groups of people other than you see out in the Middle East with the UAE and the Saudis, who are willing to really kind of put that kind of money into a club, which essentially they don't know whether they can resurrect. They don't know. They need to generate income. They need to make sure that the players on the pitch are doing good, the manager's doing good, and also come in and fund a rebuild of a stadium. Now, there's some question as to whether a new owner would come in and rebuild the Old Trafford itself or build a new stadium. The quite simple answer to that is it's cheaper to build a new stadium right next door to Old Trafford. So right next to it, if we start building in the car park, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to build from the scratch than to do something with the current Old Trafford. And then there's also problems with having to relocate somewhere else in another stadium whilst Old Trafford gets renovated and things like that. And I can't think of anywhere where United could actually go. I mean, can you imagine us going across the city playing in the Etihad? I mean, I think there's a few other stadiums available actually in Manchester that they could possibly go to. But again, that's logistically is quite a difficult thing to do. So it's very easy for them to start building next to Old Trafford and get things going on from there. So look, those are the updates so far we've got. Those are the news stories so far we've got on the takeover. The takeover looks like it could happen. It could happen, and it might not happen. We're still in limbo because we still haven't heard from the main people. We've still not heard from the Glazers. Now, it could be a positive thing, and I'm taking it as a positive thing. I'm being very optimistic. We've got to be. We've had so much, like Dave said, we've had so much PTSD as United fans that we've stopped looking at the light at the end of the tunnel, if there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But we've stopped seeing that. And we need to actually start thinking positively and start thinking, yeah, we can get this done. These guys, surely they need to leave. Surely now is the time where they say, right, we're calling it a day. We're calling it a day, and we need someone to come in and buy us out. But I think they are waiting for their payday. It's no secret. I believe it's not secret. The Glazers want out. They want to sell up and leave. They can see that they're not getting any money from United at the moment. Since Jim Ratcliffe came in, there's the other aspect as well, which is they're not actually getting any dividends. Before Jim Ratcliffe was at the club, the Glazers were taking yearly dividends. No matter what was going on at United, whether we were making money or not, they were still taking around about 40 mil in dividends as a family. They were taking it out, and it was like we say, it was the goose that was laying the golden egg each year. No matter what went on, United was still making plenty of money. And look, I'm hoping that we get some concrete news in the next couple of days. I brought this news to you because I thought, right, okay, there's quite a few people now, all these journalists who've remained pretty quiet when the news broke last week, but now they've been coming like the Ben Jacobs and Mittens and who else were Laurie Whitwell and stuff. All these guys have come out now and actually had time to look into it and have confirmed that, okay, there is something going on. There's something going on. We had Andrew Mitten saying he doesn't believe something's going on. He's sceptical. But Laurie Whitwell, his colleague from the Athletics, he said, well, look, Sheikh Al-Turki has made these comments. He's not got these comments from nowhere. He's simply not just woke up one day saying, oh, I'm going to make up some shit about Man United being taken over. No, there is something in the scenes behind the things that we're not aware of. Behind the scenes, something's going on, and there's definitely talks being had between the Glazers and some possible investors. How far they are and how advanced they are, I'm not quite sure. And will it actually happen? Whatever happens, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Don't expect breaking news tomorrow morning that the Glazers have sold. Well, I hope, you never know. I mean, that would be the perfect dream, right? That you wake up tomorrow morning and boom, news headlines are the Glazers have decided to sell their shares to a new owner. I would be more than happy for Jim Ratcliffe to stay where he is and for the new investment group to come in and even just buy out the Glazers. I'd accept that. Even if it's not a full takeover by this investment company, I'd take anybody but the Glazers. And that's where we were even with Jim Ratcliffe. When Jim Ratcliffe came in, we were like, yeah, as long as you buy the entirety of the club, we're happy for you to do that. But when he didn't buy the full club, and then he came out, waxing lyrical about the Glazers being a nice family and nice people, you were like, wait, what's he smoking? What's he on? What's he on? How can he be turning around saying that the Glazers are nice people when we all know they've done jack shit for this club? In fact, they've screwed us over. They screwed us over. And how can you be telling the fans to stop protesting about the Glazers and to say that all they're good people and the fans have got it wrong? That's the problem I have with Jim Ratcliffe. Guys, make sure you hit the like button on this video. Make sure you subscribe. I'm going to call it a day because I don't want to go on and on for hours. We could go on. I'd love to discuss this more and more. I want to thank you, everybody that's dropped their comments and got involved. I really enjoy interacting with all of you. So thank you, Dave. Thank you, Geordie Boy. Thank you, Red. Thank you, Sanjay, again. All of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking part. Of course, hit that subscribe button so you can become part of our community. And of course, we drop every daily content about Man United, what's going on. And it's just genuine content. It's not clickbait. It's not like, let's, talk rubbish. I want all you fans to get involved. So hit that subscribe button and of course, get involved. Okay, guys, hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.